The morning the bulldozers arrived, I was 200 miles away, sipping bitter office coffee and staring at spreadsheets that blurred behind tears. Grandpa Joe's funeral had been 2 weeks prior, and the weight of his legacy, a 200-acre farm in Grass Brook, hung over me like the Midwest fog. Then the call came. Mrs. Thompson, Grandpa's neighbor of 40 years, her voice cracking like dry cornstalks. "They're digging up your east fields. Get here. Now." The land that never sold. The drive to Meadowcreek was a blur of speed limits ignored and memories unspooled. Grandpa's farm had been a childhood haven. Firefly summers, the smell of pipe tobacco in his study, rows of corn that seemed to stretch into forever. But now, as I crested the hill overlooking the eastern fields, that forever was marred by the snarl of yellow machinery. Dust choked the air, and a sign blared. Sunny Pines East, 96 luxury residences, starting at $450,000. A woman in pristine beige stood near the chaos, clipboard in hand. Diane Reynolds, president of the Sunny Pines HOA, dismissed me with a glance. "This is my land," I said, my voice steadier than my hands. She smiled, all veneer. "Your grandfather sold it last year." But Grandpa hadn't. He'd sworn the farm would stay in the family, even as developers circled like vultures in his final months. The hidden truth. Back at the farmhouse, Mrs. Thompson waited with iced tea and a confession. Joe was furious. Those people came with easement papers, drainage plans. He kept saying they'd never take it. But the day before the hospital, he hid something. Grandpa's study was a time capsule. Almanacs, faded photos, and a ledger tracking every rainfall since 1962. In a floorboard beneath his desk, I found the truth. The original 1910 land deed, yellowed maps showing the farm's true borders. 280 acres, not 200, and a letter addressed to me. "If you're reading this, someone's trying to steal what's ours." Grandpa's words burned on the page. For years, developers had tried to buy him out. In his last days, they'd forged boundary changes, shaving 80 acres for Sunny Pines. The current construction wasn't just on my land. It encroached on wetlands Grandpa had fought to protect decades ago. The fight begins. Armed with maps and a lawyer named Walter Franklin, whose bow tie seemed older than the county itself, I filed an emergency injunction. Construction halted, but Diane's retaliation was swift. Fines for illegal parking on my own driveway, water shutoffs, inspectors citing safety violations in the 100-year-old farmhouse. "You're nobody here," she hissed at a community meeting, her red blazer sharp as a blade. But she hadn't counted on the Millers, fined for growing tomatoes, or the Patel family charged $3,000 for a toddler's swing. Together, we formed the Grass Creek Homeowners Alliance. The trap springs. The final showdown came at a packed town hall. As Diane railed against illegal claims, I unveiled Grandpa's maps and Gerald Fisher's financial records. $427,000 in HOA funds funneled to her family's shell companies. The crowd turned. Neighbors shared stories of her arbitrary fines, her threats. "This isn't about land," I said, voice echoing. "It's about choosing who we are." Legacy. Today, the marshlands thrive under federal protection, a haven for herons and school field trips. The revamped development, smaller homes, solar roofs, rainbow-painted doors, hosts families who tend community gardens where unapproved tomatoes grow. Grandpa's farmhouse, now a community center, buzzes with potlucks and piano lessons. Diane's plea deal made the local news, but I barely noticed. I was too busy watching kids bike past the wetlands, their laughter carrying the weight of a fight Grandpa started, and I finished. "Stubborn as an ox," Mrs. Thompson says, handing me lemonade. "Just like him."